Responding to a need for a more effective communication method, Hambisela introduced a storyline element to the content of the modules. Stories help people to remember information better, as well as aids in integrating the information into their daily lives. Ideally, we want to encourage them to share their own stories, but telling the story of Neliswa and Thandi helps participants to feel more open about sharing their own stories, as they often relate to certain aspects of the story of Neliswa and Thandi. Here are two examples of the story of Neliswa and Thandi being told in the trainer's own words.
Good day everyone, welcome to the group. And today we'll be talking about what is cerebral palsy and how does it look. But first of all, I'm just going to start off with a story to explain it more. So this story is about Neliswa and her family. And Neliswa and her family stays in a small village called Taleni, and there are only a few people living there. It's not a very big village. And Neliswa is living there with her mother and her husband and her little boy Tabu, and she is pregnant. Now her mother is very excited about the pregnancy because she wants another child and she's hoping that it might be a little girl, but she said now as long as the girl is healthy and the family is happy, then it's good. So what happened then, Neliswa a few months later gave birth to a little girl, and it was a very difficult birth. Because first of all, because she's living in a small village, they waited a long time for the ambulance to arrive at the village. And when Neliswa and her husband got to the clinic, the doctor was still busy with someone else, so they had to wait for the doctor to finish. So after she gave birth, or during the birth, the little girl had difficulties breathing or difficulties receiving oxygen. So afterwards, the nursing staff put the baby in an incubator, and Neliswa's husband was very, very concerned, and he asked the whole time, "Is the baby okay? Is the baby okay?" And the sister said, "No, the baby is fine, no problem." So then the baby, called Thandi, or the little girl, she stayed in the hospital for a month, and then afterwards Neliswa and the baby and then her husband returned home. So the grandmother was very excited, and little Tabu was very excited to see Neliswa and the new baby girl, and it was just a very happy situation. So then 10 months afterwards, little Tabu was playing outside. He was running and chasing a chicken, and Neliswa and her mother was sitting on the grass, and Neliswa was holding a little baby Thandi, and Thandi was sleeping. And they were laughing at Tabu because he was just running around. And Neliswa thought, but when Tabu was 10 months old, like Thandi is now 10 months old, he was already able to sit upright. And she thought, but this is strange. And she didn't say anything, but she got a bit worried because why isn't Thandi sitting up straight? Why can't she sit? So she thought, no, okay, that evening she'll just talk to her husband about that. So the evening came, and Neliswa told her husband about her concerns, and her husband said, no, she doesn't have to worry, but if she just wants to make herself feel better, then they can go to the clinic the following day, and then they can just have a checkup. So the following day, Neliswa went to the clinic, and she took Thandi with, and she explained to the nurse all her concerns. So the nurse listened carefully, and she looked at Thandi and evaluated her, and then the nurse said, but Neliswa must see the doctor. So when Neliswa heard that, she got very anxious and she got very worried. A week later, Neliswa went to the doctor, and again she explained the whole story, all her worries and her concerns. She explained that to the doctor, and the doctor also listened carefully, and then after examining her, little Thandi, he said to Neliswa, Thandi has got cerebral palsy. So when Neliswa heard that, she was very worried and she was confused, and she started crying, and he tried to explain to her what cerebral palsy is, but she couldn't understand a word because she was just overwhelmed and she was worried, and she kept on thinking, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And the doctor told her he didn't do anything wrong, so he just explained to her what cerebral palsy is. Okay, and then afterwards, Neliswa returned home. Is there anyone else that maybe relates to France's story or that wants to share their own story? Okay.
I'm going to tell you the story of Neliswa and her little daughter Tandi. And remember last time I told you the story, Nelisa just found out Tandi had CP. And then she had to go back and explain to her mother and family what CP is all about. Now today we're going to look at what's happening in their house. So today Neliswa was in the kitchen busy washing dishes, and then little Tabu wanted to watch TV, so he called his granny and they went to sit on the couch to watch TV. And then he said no, but he wanted his little sister to come and watch TV with them. So granny went to fetch little Tandi, and then she wanted Tandi to sit on the couch with them. But then she started to struggle because Tandi doesn't want to sit. Her whole body is stiff, her legs are pulling stiff, her head is pushing backwards, and she was struggling to get Tandi to sit on the couch. In the meantime, while Neliswa was doing the dishes, she let a glass slip and it fell on the floor and it broke, and the granny was thinking, no, she must go and help Neliswa. So she wanted to put Tandi back on the couch, and she put pillows to keep her upright, and she went to the kitchen, and when she looked back, Tandi was sliding off the couch. So she had to run back and catch Tandi just before she fell on the floor. And then she didn't know what to do, so she just put Tandi on the floor, lying on the floor, and went to help Neliswa in the kitchen. And in the meantime, Tabu was getting a bit irritated with all of this because he just wanted to watch the TV show. Okay, and this little story of what is happening just illustrates that sometimes the children with CP, it's difficult to handle them. It's difficult to get them to sit upright sometimes because their body struggles to stay upright, or it's pushing or pulling in different directions, or they're moving a lot. Okay, so I want you to think of the children here at Lingestads, and if any of them, anything in the story of Tandi reminds you of any of the children here at Lingestads.
Encourage group members to share their own stories. Use questions linked to the events in the story to encourage discussion.